Hello to each of my students. My name is Mr. Graves, and we have another algebra lesson here today to teach you. Today is factoring trinomials of the form ax²+bx+c. And we're going to find out from another lesson that I had done in a video that trinomials get a little bit more complicated in their factoring. And today, a lot more detail than even what I did in another video. So I wanted to share this with you. Those of my students are corresponding to their curriculum. They know where we're at, and following along in your book, you'll be able to see these examples. So I want to show you here what we're doing, take you step by step. I wrote the problems out already, and the reason for doing so is to save some time and just to try to take you with each and every step for these problems. So let's start with this particular problem here, 3x² plus 7x plus 2. It's a trinomial that what we want to do is factor. The trinomials that we had done up until this point in the first term only had an x squared, and the coefficient was always a 1. These that we're doing will have some numbers in front, and that makes a difference. We've got to make sure we contend with that and realize what we're doing. So 3x² plus 7x plus 2. The form that we're using, so everybody understands, is ax² plus bx plus c. So if we look at this form, as we look at this equation, the letter A corresponds to the number 3, the letter B corresponds to the number 7, and the letter C corresponds to the number 2. And of course the reality would be is that they're positive actually, and we need to make sure that we remember that, okay? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do the same thing with each of the problems, take you step by step in what we're doing, and try to keep it concise, but at the same time try to help you understand how we factor these trinomials that have a little bit of a different form, all right? So here we go, all right? The first thing we're going to multiply a times c, and then we're going to have b by itself. We know that a times c would be 3 times a positive 2, and the answer is 6, and then b is going to equal 7, all right? We need those numbers because here's what we're going to do with those numbers, and here's the phrase that might help you to understand. We need to find the AC factors whose sum is b, all right? So we basically need to find the factors of 6 that when added together equal 7. In this next equation that we'll do, we'll need to actually find the factors of 48 that will add to a negative 19. And then in this third equation, or the third problem actually in our trinomial, the AC ends up being a negative 60, a regular large number, but also for negative 7 is what we need to have it add to, okay? So in our first one here, we'll go with 6 and 1. So 6 and 1 are the factors that when added together equal 7, okay? So now that we've found 6 and 1, here's what we do. We take this 7x right here, we're going to rewrite the problem, and instead of writing 7x, we're going to write 3x² plus 1x plus 6x. Now we know that those two added together equal 7x, okay? But we're going to expand that middle term, and we're going to make it 1x plus 6x, all right? So the 7x turns into that. Corresponding, we'll do that to the other two as well. Now, what we have here is 3x² plus 1x plus 6x plus 2. And all we're going to do is we're going to take this 4-term polynomial and we're going to change it into 2 sets of binomials. So we're going to put parentheses around the first, 3x² plus 1x, the first binomial, then a plus, then we're going to put a parenthesis around the second binomial. Now, when we do that, what we're going to end up doing, and this is in another lesson that I taught before, what we're going to end up doing is we're going to get the greatest common factor from each binomial, okay? That is taught in another lesson. But this here, 3x² plus 1x, I'm not going to expound on that right now. But what we'll do is, we know that we can pull out an x in each one. We can't pull out a number, but we got 2 x's here, 1 x here, remember min-com. All right, so we can only pull out 1 x. So in doing that, here's our x. And then we pull it out and we get x times 3x plus 1 plus, automatic plus, and then we have a 6x plus 2. We know we can pull a 2 out of each, okay? And that means we pull the 2 out, so this becomes 3x plus 1. And remember, in reverse, all right? Distributive property, 2 times 3x is 6x, 2 times 1 is 2. So what we've done is we basically factored two binomials, okay? As we brought it down, and now we have this. Now let me pause here, and let me show you just an old concept of algebra that we've taught you, combining like terms. Remember, my class knows we underline, all right? 3a plus 6a is simply 9a. We combine, we don't change the letter. We just know that because the two letters are the same, we just simply combine the numbers, okay? And we get 9a. Well, in algebra, remember that binomials or polynomials or whatever that are exactly the same, take a look at the 3x plus 1 here. Take a look at the 3x plus 1 here. Even though it's a group or a binomial, in algebra, they're treated as a regular term or a letter. So if they are the same, then the number or the item that's in front of it can be combined. Here we have a 3 plus 6, which is 9. Well, here we have an x and a plus 2. So because these are the same, just like the concept here in combining our terms, we do the same on a level where there's binomials. So because these are the same, this x plus 2 can be written like this, and then our 3x plus 1. And this becomes our answer. It's the factored trinomial, the two binomials that come from this trinomial. And again, like I said in another lesson, it was a little bit easier. We basically took two numbers, we multiplied together, equaled our last, but when added, equal our middle. Well, because we've got a coefficient in front of our first term, it kind of changes the dynamic and what we do. All right? So let's go to the next one. 2x squared minus 19x plus 24. We find what our AC is, 2 times 24, 48. B is negative 19. Now what we're going to do, I put this arrow down here, forgot to tell you, this one didn't have it, those were the two factors of 6. There are a lot of factors of 48. I didn't list them all, but there are. So what we have to do is we would normally list all the factors of 48, and remember, 3 and 16 multiplied together equal 48, but you also have to have their negative counterparts. All right, the factors also are negative and negative. Well, whatever the factors are, the long list that you would have could be 2 and 24, negative 2 and negative 24, and so forth. You'd have a long list, but remember, when added together, they need to equal B. Well, we know that negative 3 to negative 16 added is a negative 19, all right? So we have to list the factors. We find our AC, find our B, we go to this phrase, find the AC factors whose sum is B. So let's list all the factors of AC or 48, but let's only use the set that adds to B, which is negative 19. When we find those, guess what we do? We do the same thing we did in the first term. We took the 7x and we made it a 1 and a 6, and we combined it, we actually expanded it, and we'll do the same here. So I'm going to rewrite the trinomial, not a negative 19x, but now it's 2x squared. I'm going to take the negative 19x, I'm going to rip it apart, and now I'm going to have a negative 3x and a negative 16x, and then add my 24 on the end. Then, like I did in my first example, I'm going to put two sets of parentheses, I'm going to make two binomials, I'm going to just put my thing right here. Now notice there's a plus here, so if there's a negative in the third term, remember I put parentheses, automatic plus, okay? Automatic plus right here. All right, and then I'm going to put my parentheses there for the second set, okay? Now I split it, now I go ahead and do my greatest common factor. That's new material from the lesson before. You have to make sure that you review that and you know what you're doing. 2x squared minus 3x. Remember, we ripped that apart. 2x and x, and then underneath it, we put 3 and x. We did min-com. All right, the only thing that's common in both, and that's minimum we can pull, is 1x. And then we write out our binomial, and we have a 2x minus 3. All right, then we're going to put a minus 8 here because a negative 16 and a positive 24. All right, we pull out as a negative 8. And then in doing so, we have a 2x minus 3 is what that breaks down to. Well, as it turns out, what you're going to find out in these problems is whatever is in parentheses is the same. That's the beauty of the lesson. It's the beauty of the factoring. So now, much like combining like terms, 3a plus 6a, and in this particular case, looks like we had an x plus 2 work out just perfectly. Combining like terms with the same binomials after the coefficient, the same thing happened here. X minus 8 times 2x minus 3. In our last example, 3x squared minus 20 minus 7. It turns out it's out of order. You know that descending order is how we write our trinomials, our polynomials. Well, we've got a power, but then we go straight to a number. Now we've got the degree there of 1, and we don't want that. So all we do is rewrite it. 3x squared stays. We put the negative 7x in the middle, then a negative 20 on the end. So make sure in any lesson you have, if you got a problem, make sure it's in the right order, that's descending, okay? AC is negative 60, 3 times a negative 20. B is a negative 7, all right? All of our factors of 60, I just wrote an arrow there. Why? Because there's a lot of factors of 60, isn't there? There's 2, and there's 30, there's 6, and there's 10. But it's negative 60, so one number has to be negative. Negative 12 and 5, could be a 12 and a negative 5, could be a negative 10 and 6, could be 10 and a negative 6, and on the list would go. 60 is a pretty round number and has a lot of factors. But for sake of time, I just wrote down the one that mattered. Negative 12 and 5. Why? Because when we add the two factors, it always has to equal what? Negative 7. The negative 12 plus 5 equals a negative 7. Okay? So we take that negative 12 and 5, and what do we do to that? We rip apart that negative 7x, all right? And we write 3x squared minus 12x plus 5x minus 20. Then if we take this right here, guess what? When we combine that, it still equals a negative 7x. We haven't changed it, we've just expanded it, okay? Then two sets of parentheses, got the plus in the middle. Now we break down each binomial, finding the greatest common factor. 3 and x can be pulled out of both, all right? So 3x times x minus 4, and then a 5 can get pulled out. Remember, can't pull an x out because that doesn't have an x, all right? 5 and then x minus 4, it looks like x minus 4 is the same. And then 3x plus 5, which I wrote that incorrectly. That is what it should be, because that means different. 3x plus 5 times x minus 5, and I wrote that wrong as well. There we go, x minus 4, all right? So this lesson covers those special, unique situations, all right? Write it out, make sure it's in descending order, find the AC, find the B, get your factors, make sure that the 2 multiplied, and then also add it as B, rip it apart, expand it, 2 sets, greatest common factor, and then you're going to see each time how it works out, and hopefully that'll be a help to you, all right? Thank you very much, hope you have a great day.